Hey everyone, welcome to Talking Tokens, a podcast focused on interviewing the best crypto founders, market players, and up-and-coming startups that are changing the industry every single Tuesday and Thursday. I'm Jacquelyn Melinek, your award-nominated host and former senior crypto reporter turned entrepreneur, and I'm excited to be here with you all. Now, let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Today's guest is Scott Shapiro, the Senior Director of Product Management at Coinbase. I'm sure all of our listeners know what Coinbase is, and if you don't, that's okay. No judgment here. But it is the largest exchange in the US for crypto and the second largest globally, with about $2 billion in 24-hour trading volume at the time of recording. The company is definitely best known for its crypto exchange that allows people to buy and sell cryptocurrencies, but it has also ventured into other product suites and categories, which we're excited to dive into today. With all that said, Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I guess to start, I'd love to know a little bit more about your background. You came from a tech world, you joined the crypto world. How'd you end up in this industry?
Yeah, boy, I can go way back. So I've always been fascinated with tech and, was messing around with AOL in the 90s. I'm dating myself here. Dial up, back in those days, and got a computer science degree a couple generations ago in terms of technology, but just kind of followed the different trends and went to work for Coinbase Facebook in 2010, excuse me.
No Coinbase then. Yeah.
No Coinbase then. No, nothing but just a little bit of Bitcoin at the time. And started getting, really deep into social media and was working on the advertising team, building marketing products for businesses all over the world. And as I was going through that, it was a fascinating time in that industry, but learned about crypto through Bitcoin in 2013 and started thinking to myself, like, there could be something here, but was also just on a great ride, and Facebook was doing very well at the time. It was kind of a rocket ship in those years. So I kind of stayed heads down, but every year that went by, there was like more and more happening. Crypto, Ethereum launched and other altcoins started rolling out, and there was just more happening. Ultimately, DeFi happened in 2018. That's when I started to notice that. And every year that went by, I kind of asked myself, like, why am I working in Web 2 when there's all this crypto stuff happening that I'm spending nights and weekends on? And ultimately in 2019, that's when I joined Coinbase, and 5 years ago, I've been there ever since. No looking back. I definitely feel that this is the future. And the 2010s, I think, were a great era for me personally and for the social media ecosystem. Learned a ton. And I think the 2020s are really about crypto and Web3.
Right. So you've been at Coinbase for 5 years. That's a long time in crypto.
Yeah. And at the end of the summer, it'll be 5 years. Yeah.
What has stayed the same and what has changed for Coinbase? Like, what do you think internally has been the biggest, constants and changes?
Yeah, I think the values and the mission and the focus is still the same. I think of most companies I've worked for had really good founders as leaders who have been vocal about it's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems. There's always different waves that kind of propagate through tech companies particularly. And I think in crypto, it's the most extreme version of that. Like, the highs are just crazy euphoria, like we saw, a handful of years ago, and the lows feel bad. Like they really hurt. 2022 was a rough year for the entire industry. So I think that's accentuated. But I think the focus is there, like the desire, right, that Brian and our leadership team have always had to bring, the world into Web3 and to make a more open financial system. And what's changed is that we've now had the resources to go big with our campaigns, like update the system, and same with crypto. And some of what we're doing is kind of higher stakes and more visible now in a product front and a legal front. And, that's probably what's changed as opposed to 5 years ago when I started. Crypto was very, relatively nascent. It had grown obviously from where it started, but even back then in 2019, I was at Google at the time actually. And when I was leaving and I was telling people I was going to work in crypto, the reaction I got from most of my colleagues was, wait, isn't that the thing that died in 2018? Like you're going a year after crypto died to work in crypto? Like, I don't get it. That was universally the reaction that I got from all of my colleagues at Google at the time. But for me, I just had such deep conviction and knew that like that constant motion was still there, even with all the turbulence.
Are those colleagues now hitting you up? Like, what should I get? How do I get into this?
A lot of them have. Some actually, joined Coinbase or gone to do other crypto things. There's been a lot of changes in tech overall in the last 5 years. I mean, when I joined in 2019, it was 7-8 months before COVID happened, and who knew that was around the corner and would have the impacts it had on the macro environment, on crypto in particular. We had absolutely no idea that was happening. So I think had those colleagues known what that future looked like, I think the reaction would have been different. Right. But looking at the historical trends, it was a reasonable reaction they had.
Yeah, for sure. So as someone who leads product management at Coinbase, what is the feedback like from users and customers? What do they want more of right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've tried to go deep with a lot of users of all kinds who just joined Coinbase, who have been experienced traders for a long time, who don't trade, but are dabbling in other things that we do at Coinbase. A lot of people who have really loved the interaction that we've built between Coinbase and Coinbase Wallet, which is our self-custodial product that allows you to do pretty much anything on chain. And so I think when we talk to users, overall, I think they're wanting to do more with us. Like they see what we're doing and they're like, how do I take more of my assets, more of my financial life and bring it into crypto? Like help make that easier for me, Coinbase. And we're trying. Like we have a lot of things that we want to do to make it easier to send and receive, to transfer funds to and from your bank accounts, to be able to spend your crypto with a debit card. That's something we launched a number of years ago, and there's ways that we can improve that. Where I focus most of my energy is on trading, and there's things like additional order types that people want to be able to do. We've been racing to add functionality there. To be able to do more on mobile when people are on the go. We're, in tech overall, seeing a big shift to mobile over the last 5 to 10 years. To be able to, this is something long-term that we're trying to solve for, but we want to enable people to trade things that don't really work in crypto today, but through crypto. So, given a lot of the regulation that's in place and like regulation needs to happen, we hope that that's something that's around the corner for us. So there's things that like we can directly control, and we're very focused on those things. And then there's things that we are kind of working at a greater scale with regulators to make happen, and have less definitive timing, but it's all part of our long-term vision.
Right. In terms of people who use Coinbase, so that's like the holistic millions of people, what percentage of them want more than just like the ability to buy and sell crypto?
I'd like to believe a very high percentage. I don't know that we've studied this in detail around that specific question, but I think what we see is that a lot of times people come for the trading, like they sign up because they hear about Bitcoin and they, think it might be a worthwhile part of their investment portfolio. And then they stay for the staking, the spending, the quests that we've launched on chain, the NFTs that you can easily access through Coinbase Wallet, the DeFi, decentralized finance. But that's really kind of the first part of the journey is trading. But for most people, they appreciate the breadth of activities, verbs, as we sometimes call them, that go well beyond just trading.
Right. And during your time at Coinbase, I'm curious, like what has been the quote unquote biggest win for you when it comes to the suite of Coinbase products that you helped create and launch?
The biggest win for me personally, or for the company?
I guess for the
both?
Business, but we could do your personal one. Yeah.
So I think one of the biggest, when I kind of zoom out and look at the big picture, I think I'm going to share two, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I think one is that when I joined Coinbase in 2019, we had about a dozen assets listed, and the only thing you could really do is trade. The next thing that you could do was, at the time it was called Earn. Now it's called Learning Rewards. It was a company that was acquired by Coinbase. And that was a way to get paid in crypto by learning about a crypto project. So you could earn $5 in Stellar, for example, by doing a little tutorial and answering some questions about Stellar. And so that was really the first like non-trading thing that we did. So I think the first answer to your question that I offer is that we've really broadened things beyond trading. So we have this notion of helping people use Coinbase as their primary financial account to be able to save and spend and borrow and obviously trade as well. And so we've launched products in all those categories and have continued to make them better. USDC rewards is something that one of the first things that I helped to launch when I joined Coinbase in 2019. That's become a huge part of our portfolio and a huge reason that people join Coinbase. Staking is another one. We launched Tezos staking in 2019. And then a couple of years later, when Ethereum started moving from proof of work to proof of stake, at the time it was called ETH2, Ethereum 2. Now it's just Ethereum. It's just part and parcel of Ethereum. But at the time, it was this whole new revolutionary idea. And we took these concepts like staking that you can do yourself, and it's really tricky and really risky to do. Or you could go to the Coinbase app and tap, and now you're staked and you're earning rewards on your ETH that would otherwise just be sitting there not earning anything. So I think broadening beyond just trading was the first thing I would say was a big win. The second thing is very much about trading, which is that we've not only consolidated Coinbase from two apps to one single unified app. We had a separate app called Coinbase Pro that was very disjoint. Right. It was very good, but you had to transfer balances. It wasn't able to scale with the future of the company. We've since launched products like derivatives globally, and now people are able to use that all in one place, all in one app with the same set of balances and tax reporting. You don't have to use two different APIs to connect with your tax software. And that was a multi-year journey that we're still aggressively pursuing to serve largely active traders with that product. But unification in a tech company, merging software is a really, really hard problem. It took us a while to get that right. I think we're now on a really good path there.
Is there anything that traders want less of, or they just don't engage with much if you launch something and you just realize, or like not even if Coinbase launched it, but just in general, are there things that you're like, yeah, traders are over this, they've already done this, or they have no interest in this?
I'd say that most, like the best traders just want focus. Like they want to, when they're in the zone of trading, like they want to have tunnel vision and just focus. And I think one lesson we learned was that we initially had a trading experience in Coinbase Advanced, which is our product for active traders that has fully replaced and surpassed anything that Coinbase Pro had ever done, is that we had a lot of other products that we were putting in front of them at the same time. And the feedback we got was like, no, get that out of the way. Like I want blinders on. Like I just want to trade. I want to be reliable, dependent, consistent, deep liquidity on books. And so we've really helped get that experience really dialed for them. And then oftentimes they're like, okay, I'm done with my trading. Now I want to be able to find all the other things in Coinbase. I want to spend on my Coinbase card, and I want to figure out how to earn rewards on my crypto using staking or USDC rewards. And so it's all accessible. And I think we found a really good balance of how to do those things. But at first we were a little bit too distracting for those active traders.
Right. I know Coinbase has also put an effort or a renewed focus on quote unquote advanced traders over the last year or so. And I believe you're a part of those efforts, right? Can you tell me a little bit more about that decision process and like why you guys decided to go that route and how it's been?
Yeah. So, crypto just has these phenomenal properties that a lot of other asset classes don't have. So, I just got an email from Schwab. I have a Schwab account, not to pick on Schwab, they're a great business. I love my product with them. But the announcement was we're moving from T+2 settlement to T+1 settlement. So that means that your trades will settle. Instead of 2 days, it'll take 1 day, which is a great step forward.
Amazing.
It's a great step forward for the equity industry.
Right.
And again, I'm a huge fan of Schwab. But in crypto, settlement is instant. It's near real time, right? It's a matter of milliseconds. Markets trade 24/7. You can transfer all of your assets at any time, anywhere, without needing to speak to somebody or go to a branch. And if you compare that with a lot of traditional asset classes, right, they take multiple days to settle. you don't have full visibility into order books. Maybe you can subscribe to different levels of streaming data to get that visibility. You're not able to, transfer everything. You can, there's some automated systems now that make transferring easier if you're transferring equity positions, for example, but it still takes multiple days and you're never quite sure if it's working versus the kind of on-chain way of sending, right? You have a definitive address, you can look at the block explorer, you can see how many confirmations you have. And so there's so many properties, so many aspects of crypto that just make the experience, particularly for trading, like so much better than traditional markets. And there's counter arguments to this that people can offer around the separation of different functions across different entities. That is, a fair criticism of where crypto is now. But largely, when we talk to a lot of the traders, a lot of the reasons they're trading crypto is they either like love crypto and just think it's the future, or they may not care as much about like kind of the altruistic vision of crypto, but they love the way that they can trade it and the experience that they have, given all those properties that we talked about. So we're really focused on how do we bring that to everybody around the world who's interested in doing this and do it the best possible way for them. So that's really been our focus with Advanced. And where we were headed a number of years ago with our Coinbase Pro product, some people might remember it as GDAX. That was the prior original brand name for it, was that it wasn't built in a scalable way, in a scalable architecture. And we talked about how it was a separate app, and even a lot of the infrastructure was separate as well. So now that we've merged all that, we can innovate so much faster. And I'm happy to talk about some of the innovations that we've done and kind of what we're focused on there too. But that's really been kind of the journey and the vision that we have for kind of our active trader segment.
Yeah. Crypto trading's 24/7. Do you also work 24/7 or you get the weekends off?
I do. Last weekend, I did not get off. We had an awesome event in Miami where we hosted a number of traders, and some of them were kind of large crypto influencers. There you go. It was a great time. So I did work kind of 7 days in a row and didn't slow down for that. But crypto is 24/7, and that means that we will have outages and issues, and we do our best to try to avoid those things. But we occasionally have to do things on the weekends, whether it's expected or unexpected. And we also have global customers. We're not a US only business at all. We have traders in dozens and dozens of countries around the world. And we need to make sure that we're always monitoring the health of our systems and doing the best job that we can for them. And even, I've really tried to stick my neck out and talk to a lot of traders. And if there's someone in Singapore or India, I'll try to speak to them, in the evening, where I am in the US, just to make it easier for them. And vice versa. We also have a global team. We have a great team in Singapore and India, lots of places around the world. So we're trying to balance like the sanity with the fact that we are a very global business.
Right. No, I get that. It's a benefit and a negative in its own way that it's 24/7. But you mentioned that there were some innovations that you could speak to. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think the big thing is that what we're able to now do with Advanced is we're unified as one app. So you go to the App Store, search for Coinbase, you get all the good things in Coinbase that you can want, regardless of your sophistication. So if you're someone who's never done $1 of investing before and is not, a computer expert, we got you. If you're somebody who's done sure. Someone who's done billions of dollars in trading in your life, or billions of dollars a month, some people do. We also got you there. So we have a unified app with 2 different modes. And so you can switch between regular mode and advanced mode just with a simple toggle. And it's a very stark difference. It looks different. You got a different focus, but it's all in one simple app. And so we have like a great engineering team that's focused on just making that app the best possible app. And that's way more effective than diluting our focus across 2 different apps and having them be almost the best. So we're better off kind of putting all of our eggs in that basket. And I think it's the best thing for any Coinbase users as well. And then on the kind of the infrastructure and trade execution part of this is we're all kind kind of tied together in one architecture that is optimized for traders. And we do this not just in the Coinbase app, but also our product called Coinbase Prime, which is built for institutions, for asset managers. It's powering a lot of the Bitcoin ETFs that we've seen in market. And so it's not as if we have like one infrastructure that's really good and only for institutions and another one that's not as good for the individual investor like ourselves. It's all the same infrastructure architecture that is working with multiple different liquidity sources, venues that we have at Coinbase. So we have, for example, our Coinbase exchange that we've had for many, many years, that many people are familiar with. Recently, we launched Coinbase International Exchange. That launched about a year ago, and we rolled it out, fully integrated it into the Coinbase app, shortly after that. And it's all in the same user interface, all in the same app. It's all streamlined. And had we not done this whole migration and unification and architecture decision, we'd have to do things very differently. It would be much, much less pleasant for people. So that's really the big type of innovation that we're doing. And then within that, there's a lot of more specific things. So one just very specific thing that some very specific traders out there will love is we're launching bracket orders right now, which let you take a position that you have and say, I want to exit this position if the price goes up this much or down that much. And that way you can kind of set it and forget it, go to sleep, given those 24/7 crypto markets, not have to worry about it. We're launching a brand new referral program for advanced traders that you can use. We've signed up a number of ambassadors like Altcoin Psycho, who's recently tweeted. And there's a number of other ambassadors. Architect on Twitter is another one who's written a really interesting story about why he decided to become a Coinbase ambassador. So there's a bunch of things that we're doing. And then within that, even within the international exchange, there's a bunch of features that we're improving there too, that I'd be happy to talk about if it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. On the point about the new features, I know Coinbase adds new things all the time. And something I've seen you tweet is perpetual future contracts or perps for traders that are sometimes not available for spot trading. Recently, there was the WIF perps for dog with hat, the meme coin on Solana, dog literally with a hat. That's the purpose of it. But how do you kind of decide like when you offer perps for it versus like spot trading? And will there be WIF spot trading?
So I can't answer any questions about future asset listings, but I can talk a little bit about our process and kind of how we arrived at this place. I think one thing to note is we have over 36 perp contracts available now. And if you look at the curve, I don't know that we publish a chart, but you could look back at our Twitter announcements and see like one of the announcements, like we've accelerated like every month in our pace of listing perp contracts. One thing to note is, just zooming out for those who aren't familiar with perps and perpetual futures, is they're probably the largest segment of crypto trading out there, period. They kind of started 5-6 years ago and have been popularized and are on a lot of exchanges now. And so we've really focused our international exchange effort on making perps accessible to non-US users, given the very specific regulation around that. And what's really interesting about perps is that they trade with leverage, that they're inherent, is just an inherent part of the product. You can go long, you can go short, and they're off chain, right? So they can't be sent and received like spot, notional Bitcoin that you'd own in your account. And so because of that, because they can't be sent and received, and they're a contract between counterparties, it's much easier to list across different networks, different blockchains, because you're actually not integrating with the blockchain the way that you would if it was a spot asset. That's not the only way that we make a decision around whether we list something as a perp or as a spot asset, but it's definitely a nice perk that perps offer in that way. And I think now we cover about 80% of crypto volumes of the total market through our perps products. And that's up from a much smaller number, a couple months ago. So we're racing down that path as well. We're also looking to add spot assets to our international exchange. in broad strokes terms. If you look though, at kind of our progress there, most of the progress has been on perps, just because that's where the market is. That's what traders are really asking for. And it's a way to access leverage in a very simplified format. And so we're interested in adding spot assets as well, but are a little bit newer to that part of it. And as always, everything goes through like a very rigorous review process. So this is maybe a question about how do we decide.
What is the process for approving trading of assets on Coinbase?
Yeah, so we have some really good blog posts that I won't bore the audience here with. But we do look at a number of criteria about the asset to make sure that it's high quality and that it's that it passes a number of criteria. We look at criteria around compliance, around security. We want to make sure that, for example, an asset isn't listed by a team that can just pull all the value out of the asset, in a nefarious way. That would be kind of a security angle. And so there's just a very, very rigorous criteria. I think we can assure your audience, though, that we are absolutely interested in listing as much as we can where we feel like it's passing our criteria, and that we have a great team that is very comprehensive, not only in looking at the market and the issuers and the tokens that are out there or could be out there, and also comprehensive in their diligence on reviewing all of those things. And just to share with the audience, because people reach out to me a lot of times, I have zero influence on that process. There's a very clear
so don't bother Scott.
Separation.
Don't come for him after this.
It's always good to know, what people want, but we keep this as like a very pure process to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the long term, and that we're not making a decision. Oh, someone wanted me to list this, so I'll just go and get it listed and capture some short-term win. That's absolutely not the focus for us at all.
Right. We've talked a lot about like some of the products in different areas that Coinbase has invested in or like created. There's also Coinbase One, which we haven't talked about yet. That's a subscription and service-based model at Coinbase that also does fairly well. I'm pretty sure in Q1 it accounted for like a third of Coinbase's total revenue. How do you kind of see that expanding in like the near term and long term, and how does that differ from the other ones we've already discussed?
Yeah, Coinbase One is an awesome product. This is something we launched a couple of years ago. It's an optional subscription product. We do have some confusion where people confuse Coinbase One and Coinbase Advanced and think that Coinbase Advanced is a subscription product. It's not the case with Coinbase Advanced. Anybody can use it for free. You only pay when you trade, and your trade fee is very clearly shown in the interface. Coinbase One is like an optional add-on. You can think of it as like an expansion pack that just makes everything about Coinbase better. So for example, you get zero fee trading on buying, selling, and converting crypto. You get additional USDC rewards. You get improved support. You get access to some premium information and insights. There's a whole long list of things. If you go to coinbase.com/one, you can see all of that. And it's been on a tear. It's been doing really, really well. Team, I won't speak for what the team has planned. They have some exciting things, around the corner, but it's been a great part of our portfolio.
Okay. I guess we'll keep our eyes open for that. What kind of role do you think Coinbase plays as an entry point for mainstream adoption? You kind of talked about the situation with the spot ETF approvals in the US that happened in January. Coinbase partnered with majority of the spot Bitcoin ETF issuers, 8 of them. So obviously there is a good stake in there for the company, but I'm curious how that kind of plays a role in Coinbase's involvement. What are you seeing on your end? Are things ramping up because of it? Tell us everything.
It was interesting to see the reaction of the ETF. It was a little bit of like a sell the news event. Like markets kind of slumped after the actual announcement happened, and then there was kind of deferred like optimism that came that I'm not sure how to totally explain. I think overall the ETF is a good thing, not just because Coinbase is involved in powering a lot of the ETFs, as you mentioned, but because it just creates more awareness and affinity with crypto. And I think when people are looking at Bitcoin ETFs through traditional brokerages and saying, oh, interesting, I can now, like, Bitcoin is that real that I can actually now make it a part of my retirement portfolio, my nest egg, in a way that I've never thought of before. I think it just opens more eyes to crypto overall. Bitcoin is one of a couple hundred assets that we list on Coinbase, and there's so much more to do that I think we are positioned such that when people discover crypto and learn about crypto and they want more, whether it's because they want to trade it more often, right? Because you can trade, real Bitcoin, spot Bitcoin on the weekends, but you can't trade ETFs on the weekend. Or you want to look into staking to earn rewards, and you're interested in Ethereum, and there is not an Ethereum ETF right now in TBD, if or when or how that happens. We need to continue to be that place that people come to when they kind of cross that second chasm, right? The first chasm is like, okay, some crypto somewhere, somehow is right for me in my portfolio. And then the next step is what's that second chasm? What do I want to do after that? How do I build a more robust portfolio? Oh, I'm interested in altcoins. I'm interested in DeFi. And we are that partner that people can go down that journey with, whether it's just going from Bitcoin to Bitcoin and Ethereum, or it's going all the way on chain and using wallet and using Base. We haven't talked about Base much.
I know. I was thinking about it. Yeah.
To do a lot of other interesting things, participate in on-chain summer,
right.
Whatever it is. So I think overall, like, the ETF helps like lift the tide for the entire industry.
Yeah. Something that I was thinking of as we were just talking about this, and you just brought up Base, you read my mind, is like, when I think of Coinbase, I think of like, that is the app on the App Store that everyone downloads to, get into crypto. It is a very like mainstream product in my eyes that, like, I would probably, if my friends said they wanted to go buy crypto, I'd tell them to go get Coinbase. Literally don't get paid for that. That's just like, how I see things. But then, yeah, of course. I mean, I use it too. I have the Coinbase app. That was one of the first ways I bought crypto. But then there's the other side of things where we have Base now. And I feel like Base has like a lot of, the on-chain people, the degens of the space. Where do you kind of see Coinbase as a whole sitting in the industry? Is it for mainstream audiences, or like the seasoned crypto veterans, or do you think it can exist in both worlds?
I think it can. And on top of those two segments you just described, right, we have developers who are using Coinbase Cloud to do interesting things, build apps on top of that. You have institutions who are, the most sophisticated market makers in the world, high frequency traders, and all the asset managers. So I think we see ourselves being a part of lots of these different value chains and providing value to lots of these different customer segments. I think with Base, I can't do it justice, and Jesse Pollock is, going to run circles around me and try to talk about this, as the head of Base at Coinbase. But I think he has a vision that, like, so much of the world is going to come on chain, and Base is going to be able to do that so much better than any other blockchain. It's going to attract the best developers, and it's going to be just part and parcel with so many users because they're already in Coinbase, and Base is already woven into Coinbase and Coinbase Wallet. So we think that we can be a part of the full life cycle that people go through in crypto, whether they're just interested in trading for trading's sake, or they're really interested in on-chain and building apps and using DeFi and trading on DEXs or anything in between. One app I've been fascinated with on Base is Friendtech. Are you on Friendtech? Have you played with it?
I have seen Friendtech. I did not put Ethereum on it, so that's when I closed the app.
Okay.
I feel like sometimes when they ask me for money before I even opened it, I'm like, come on. I know it's very popular, though, Yeah. It's a very crypto thing.
It's wild. I mean, it's just like a wild social experiment, and like having come from a social media background and seeing how these different mechanics with this, I don't know if it's a monetization layer, it's just like an economic layer on top of a social network. It's just fascinating to see what's happening on Base. Farcaster with frames and the growth that they're having. That's closely related to Base. I just think there's so much that can happen that we just don't even know. It's kind of like the early days of the internet. It's like, who knew that all these different things we'd be doing on the internet would happen. And I think that's kind of where Base is well positioned right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I follow Base pretty closely because I work with Optimism, which Base is built on the OP stack. Optimism is one of the partners for my company, Token Relations. But so we cover Base, in and out, but I feel like Base has gotten a lot of traction. And I guess maybe it speaks to the point that, so many people use Coinbase. So it makes sense that it naturally flowed into that, right?
For sure. It's one of those things where we have obviously such a high level of trust in Base because we're so close to it that we're comfortable positioning it in a way that it was very core to the user experience. And we're not to say that we're not doing things with other networks. If you look at some of the tokens that we have on Coinbase, like USDC, we're integrated with USDC on Solana and Avalanche and Optimism and Arbitrum and lots and lots of networks. And so we continue to want to proliferate and integrate lots of different networks. But there's something special about Base that we want to make sure that we also highlight.
Yeah. Kind of thinking of everything we've talked about so far, what is it going to take to really onboard the masses into crypto? Kind of hit that watershed moment. We expected to come after the spot Bitcoin ETF approvals. And to be fair, there was a lot of inflows there, but I don't know if that was like a mainstream adoption event as much as it was for like financial institutions.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the ETF, the way that I kind of look at that is like it's crypto in a TradFi package, right? Because it looks and walks and speaks like everything else that is exchanged.
Like the Trojan horse meme going to the fence, and then inside the Trojan horse there's like little fighters, but it's actually just crypto.
I'll have to look that one up. But maybe.
Yeah.
I think there's like the inverse of this is really where I think some unlock can happen. So for example, we have not a lot of, but with the ETF, we're seeing crypto in a TradFi package. And I think if the inverse of this can also happen, where you're seeing more things you can do with TradFi in a crypto package, we'll get even more progress there. When you look at crypto right now, and I think Chris Dixon's blog post from last week or a couple of weeks ago, have you seen this? It's called Memes Over Matter.
No, I didn't.
He writes about how, given where regulation is and given the challenges, it's so much easier to make memes than anything else in crypto. And like memes are awesome. I love memes.
Yeah.
And it's such an entertaining way to spend time. Is to like see all the different memes. Like when we announced our Pepe perps and our Whiff perps, like the internet went crazy with like coming up with all these crazy like Pepe the frog wearing a Coinbase hoodie memes because they're so excited with this, right? So that's cool. Like we love memes, but there's so much more that could happen beyond just memes. And Chris Dixon talks about the matter, which is like actual real utility and value and extending some of the real things that TradFi does into crypto. And so I think that's going to be a huge unlock is once we're there as an ecosystem. And one of the things at Facebook in the early days we talked about was that we had two goals. One was to make social companies big. So a company like Zynga, for those who remember Zynga, I'm dating myself, social gaming company.
Yeah.
Farmville, anyone?
Farmville, yes. They were on Facebook as well.
Like that was a social company that Facebook helped make really big. But then there were big companies and we go to brands like Nike and Procter & Gamble at the time. And they were like, I don't know about the social thing. Now, obviously that's changed. And I think with crypto, it's similar, right? Where crypto companies have become big. There's been a lot of big successes, Uniswap, Maker, lots of household names now. Obviously blockchains, Optimism has become a great force in the industry. But what we haven't seen is big companies go crypto nearly as much. We've had MicroStrategy, right? So that's great. We have a treasury play. Michael Saylor's been a huge advocate for Bitcoin. But when you look at the Fortune 500, there's not a lot of movement into crypto. And I think that that's going to be a big unlock when everybody is comfortable with where regulation is to move forward in that direction. And, Chris might write another blog post at that point saying like, actually, memes are cool, but the matter is also here now.
Yeah, no, 100%. Before we hit time, I'd love to do a little segment called Jack in the Hat. And it's basically where I ask you some questions that come out of a hat and you can tell me when to stop and we'll go from there.
Let's do it. Wow, that's a lot of questions.
No, I know. It's like 50. And then once they're done, I take them out and then we'll start over. But anyways, tell me when.
Go.
Oh, okay. What's a real world use case you think is overlooked in crypto?
Meaning something that is possible today in the real world, but it's overlooked?
Yeah, that's how I interpret my question as well.
I think payments, especially internationally, like when you have two people cross border that both have a crypto app on their phone and they can exchange value, right? They can send USDC to each other on Base for free. Like that's just so powerful. Like you had all these issues with traditional peer-to-peer payment apps that don't work across borders, or they have low limits, or you have to do some verification or like put in some funny thing that you don't want to do. Like, I think that's a huge one.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And like, even if it's just sending a payment to a family member abroad, or, you know, for countries that don't have such a stable financial system, payments are huge. I'm with you on that. All right, one more. Tell me one.
Go.
Outside of crypto, what's a hobby of yours that would surprise people?
I don't know if it's a surprise. Like I put my hobbies very visible on my Instagram, but I love mountain biking. I live in the mountains here in Utah and moved here because Coinbase is fully remote. And one of the reasons was that I could mountain bike every day or ski in the winter easily. And so I don't know if it's a surprise, but there aren't a lot of crypto mountain bikers. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then one of the last two questions that I ask all my guests is, aside from everything we've talked about, what's one thing you're watching right now in crypto that you think others should pay attention to?
I'm still watching DeFi really closely and been fascinated by some of the products on Base like Moonwell and Aerodrome. We haven't talked about those specifically, but seeing some really strong teams behind those products, and I think that there's a lot that can happen there.
Okay. Go check that out, listeners. And lastly, Scott, can you leave us with a piece of advice that you've carried with you throughout your time in crypto?
So none of this was financial advice, by the way. Like,
no.
Check out these protocols and everything at your own risk.
Yeah.
But piece of advice in crypto, I think it's, I'm not a very Zen person. People sometimes tell me that I am, but I think it's really like looking at the long-term, staying focused, avoiding and like dampening like all those reverberations that happen from all the issues that we've seen. And we've been through some really, really, really big slumps. People kicked us hard when we were down at our lowest, and just like disassociating with that and just saying, are we doing the right thing for the long term is the most important thing. And I think that's true in a lot of startup situations, not that we're a startup anymore. But especially in crypto of all flavors, I think that's been critical.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. All right. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me. That was great.